Today's episode features Robert Siciliano, CEO of Protect Now LLC and the architect of the Strategic Human Firewall. You can learn more about his work at protectnowllc.com. If God is for me, who's against me? Nobody is. Welcome to Sanctuary Peacemakers. This is your frontline guide to safety and security inside houses of worship with your host, Unity. Now, let's enter the crucible of our discussion. Today we're talking about something that sits right at the center of church safety, and that's the tension between being welcoming and being aware. Because churches are built on trust. That's part of what makes them what they are. But that same mindset can also create blind spots. So the question is, how do you stay welcoming without becoming vulnerable? I'm joined by Robert, is it Siciliano?
Perfect. Nice job.
Okay. Robert Siciliano, to break that down. Robert, I want to start with this. When you talk about the sanctuary blind spot, what do you mean by that?
So, sanctuary blind spot, also known as the human blind spot, right, is our, human biological default to trust. It's what we do. It's natural, it's normal, and it's always been that way. We, as an interdependent species, are, dependent upon each other for our survival. It's been like that since the beginning of time. And, interdependent means essentially man needs woman and vice versa to procreate. Mm-hmm. And the basis of that is that we need to trust each other. And so that biological want and need to trust means that in general, throughout the day, week, month, year, the people we come in contact with, in person, over the phone, email, text message, whatever, we want to and need to essentially trust and or give them the benefit of the doubt. And the problem with that is due to the fact that, obviously not everybody is worthy of our trust. Right. In the course of my professional career, I've come to the conclusion, and this can be researched easily, that probably 97% of all the people that you will ever engage with, via in person, virtually, whatever, 97% of the world's population are basically worthy of your trust. These are good people. But, however, the medical communities point to as many as 3% of women to as much as 6% of men have what we call antisocial personality disorders. And not all, yeah, we all do. And not all antisocial personality disorders result in violence. Right. But many of them do not possess characteristics like the 97%, such as empathy, sympathy, guilt, remorse. Some of them truly have no shame. And as a result, hitting, hurting, harming, stealing from others is a very normal thing for some of them. Like, they don't have an issue with that. And that is problematic due to the fact that, we give these people our best self and they have weaponized our trust.
Right. So what is it about church environments specifically that makes people lower their guards?
Well, it's that open door policy, right? It's inviting the sick and hungry.
Right.
And predators know this. They recognize the church environment as one of the softest of soft targets.
Right.
It's literally people welcoming you with open arms. It's literally that. And, there was a time when schools were considered the softest of soft targets. And obviously, due to various school shootings, they've locked their doors.
Right.
They're still considered a soft target still, but they have a lot more security in place.
Yeah.
Whereas on any given literal Sunday, the doors are wide open in a church environment.
Right. Why do you think people associate situational awareness with paranoia?
It's a great question. So I engage in security awareness training for a living. That's what I do.
Right.
And a little bit different than what you guys do. You guys are like boots in the ground, like, actually tightening up systems and such, right?
Yeah.
I provide a level of awareness, what to do, what not to do, why, what security is, what security isn't. And in that process, in order to teach security awareness, I've got to get the audience kind of on the same page. And what that means is like get them on the same page as to what security actually is.
Right.
Because most people don't look at security as a positive thing. And what that truly means is like, for example, a question I ask my audience is like, how many of you have a home security system? If I get 15% of the room to raise their hand, that's a lot, which means 85% of the room doesn't have a home security system.
I'd be the 15.
What's that?
I'd be the 15%.
Yeah. Depending on where I am in the country, I also ask, how many of you lock your doors? Urban versus suburban versus rural. It's diametrically different. Rural, right. If I get 20% lock their doors, that's a lot. Suburban, if I get 60%, that's a lot. Urban, I might get 80%. But still, even in an urban setting, 20% are locking the doors. And then the next question is like, how many of you have those home security system like we talked about? And that 85%, when I begin to ask them, okay, so why don't you have a home security system? Like, it's a very honest question. And the honest answers are generally, oh, well, we have insurance, as if insurance is going to protect you,
Right.
Not well thought out, my husband says we don't have a home security system because if they're going to break in, they're going to break in anyways. Not much we can do.
Now, do you see that kind of thing translating into churches as well? That churches keep that same mindset. Like a lot of churches don't have maybe cameras or don't have security systems, that kind of thing.
It does. It's part fatalism. There's not much we can do, so why bother? And
Right.
it's part I just want to trust. But getting back to your original question, the most common answer as to why we don't have a home security system, people raise their hand and they literally say, I don't have a home security system because I don't want to live like that. They say, I don't want to have to worry. I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to be paranoid. They say.
Right.
They literally say the words, I don't want to be paranoid. And what that truly means is they believe, based on cultural myths, misnomers, misunderstandings over the course of our lives, that security means that you worry, that you're always looking over your shoulder, that somebody's out to get you. People who engage in these practices must be paranoid. And paranoia, as we know, the medical community has diagnosed this as a mental health disease.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that, right?
No, for sure.
Truly. And so when we as a culture equate security, which is about gaining control, with paranoia, which truly is out of control, why would you ever want security in your life if it's about paranoia? And so we have this adverse reaction to security. We actually have an unhealthy relationship with security.
Right.
And therefore, we don't do anything about it. I don't want to live like that. I choose to function in denial. Therefore, I'm not going to do anything about it. Only people who are paranoid do that. And so we actually use fatalism. If they're going to break in, they're going to break in, to justify why we don't engage in security practices.
Do you
And we
think
use
part of it is also the mindset of it won't happen here? Like you were saying, in the more rural areas, there's fewer people that lock their doors or may have a security system. Do you think that they've tricked themselves into living under that mindset? Oh, it won't happen out here.
denial is a very human trait, and denial is wonderful. Denial allows us to avoid worry and threats and anxiety. Denial is like a shield. It's like this mental emotional shield that we use to prevent us from feeling, anxiety and harm.
Right.
It is the literal head in the sand, put your covers over your head. I don't want to have to think about that. I don't want to talk about that. Denial is great, but not when it comes to security.
Right.
I often ask my audiences, and I'll ask you, you're watching the 6 o'clock news and something tragic happens in a neighborhood somewhere, something bad happens, and the camera, the reporter and her camera guy, they walk into the neighborhood, they knock on the neighbor's door, and the neighbor comes outside and they put the microphone in her face. So what do you think about what happened next door? What does the neighbor always, always, always say?
I don't know. I don't watch much news. I pay attention to what's going on, but I don't watch from that perspective.
They always say, you never thought it was going to happen in this neighborhood.
Yeah,
Nobody,
I've heard that said quite a bit now that you bring it up.
yeah, nobody ever wants to think it's going to happen in the neighborhood. Everybody wants to think we live in a safe neighborhood.
Right.
And chances are people who say that live in a safer neighborhood. But safe, the word safe by itself isn't absolute. You're either safe or you're out. And while most neighborhoods are by definition safe, they're not necessarily secure.
Right.
And that leads to significant complacency. And we do nothing. We don't lock our doors. We don't install the home security system because we have this false sense of security.
Yeah.
Now, I tell everybody, don't worry about any of these things. Truly, don't worry about burglars or home invaders, hackers for that matter. Don't worry about those things, but do something about it.
Yeah.
You put these systems in place not because you worry, not because you live in fear. You don't put a seatbelt on because you worry. You don't put a seatbelt on because you live in fear. You don't put a seatbelt on because you're paranoid. You put it on because it's the smart thing to do. And if you engage in smarter best practices, you become a tougher target, you reduce risk. It's about modifying systems and structures and behavior, even just a little bit, to become a tougher target.
So it sounds like you kind of touched upon this next question a bit, but you said the vast majority of people are worthy of our trust. It's only a very small percentage that are not. So how do you train people to be aware without making them suspicious of everyone around them?
Well, there's nothing wrong with being strategically suspicious, right? Being strategically suspicious is not necessarily being emotionally suspicious. It's intellectually recognizing risk.
Right.
It's what I call, it's a methodology that I trademarked. It's called the strategic human firewall. And the idea behind the strategic human firewall is you learn to block deception. You learn to recognize deception, right? It's a proactive governance. It's a mindset that turns consumers, employees, citizens from passive targets to active detection layers. Like you kind of see it coming.
Yeah.
It's the shift from, by default, I automatically trust, I give the benefit of the doubt all the time. It's the shift from I trust to I verify everything. I do a deeper dive. I spend a little bit more of my mind share to determine what is really happening here, right? And the way that you do that, at least from my perspective as a security awareness trainer, is you engage in what's called security appreciation training. And security appreciation training is the shift from awareness, which intellectually is knowing, to appreciation, which truly is caring. Knowing is head-based. Caring is, of course, heart-based.
Right.
And to truly change behavior, you have to change hearts to change minds, right? And so when consumers, citizens, employees appreciate how security protects their own lives personally, that's when behavior begins to change. That's when we begin to process the world just slightly differently. We go from knowing to caring, right? We go from being emotionally worried and suspicious to intellectually investigating, right? And I call this the security appreciation gap. It's that chasm between a person's intellectual understanding of risk, again, that's awareness, and the emotional commitment to act on that knowledge, which again is appreciation. And for my audiences, I call this the kitchen table effect. It's that multiplier effect where successful training ends with that employee teaching the concepts to their family at home, cementing those lessons for life.
Right. Now, in a church, the greeters or the ushers are typically the first people that you see when you come in a church, and I've been a strong advocate that they are, even though they're not directly part of the safety team or the safety ministry at the church, they are a huge part of, a huge branch of it, in that they're, like I said, the first ones that you come across. So what should a greeter or usher actually be paying attention to in those first few seconds of the interaction?
We might consider them a first responder.
Right.
And so I sleep well at night, 7.5 hours every night. I got a home security system. I have identity theft protection, something called a credit freeze. My device has antivirus. I've got a 65-pound Belgian Malinois, if you know what that is. It's a dog that's more like a hyena. They bite. I've got beware of dog signs. I've got this house is protected by ADT. I've got, door reinforcement technology. I've invested in firearms training multiple times a year, firearms that are by my bed when I sleep at night, but I continually effectively engage in, tactical type training.
Right.
And I sleep well at night because I don't worry about any of these things, but I've done something about it.
Right.
I've developed over the course of a lifetime, which anybody can do in a very short period of time, a mindset where, like, when I go to the grocery store, I don't worry that someone's going to walk in with an automatic firearm or a semi-automatic firearm and shoot the place up. I don't worry about that. But I walk in to the grocery store looking around the perimeter of my body for behavior that might trigger something bad, right? Somebody acting out, somebody acting suspicious, somebody in the middle of August wearing a long coat, anything out of place, red flags,
Right.
that jar my senses, but I'm looking for it. Awareness is a learned behavior. By paying attention, being alert, and becoming aware of your surroundings, you can make awareness a habit. And making awareness a habit helps you to get so much more out of life. You see 10 times more of the good that life has to offer. And for your safety and security, you see more of the bad. And like all natural abilities, awareness can be enhanced and improved. And once you accept the fact that, your everyday environment generally feels safe and generally is safe, your everyday environment can be dangerous. And so by adopting these basic principles of situational awareness, and that's like every situation you're in, you're walking down the street, just going from point A to point B, checking out the perimeter of your body, in front, right, left, behind. You're in a parking garage. Before you get out of your car, You scan the area around the perimeter of the vehicle. As you're walking through the garage, getting into the elevator, stairwells, the whole thing, looking for red flags, people loitering, people out of place, whatever the case is, people paying unwanted attention to you, right? You're at a concert, you're at a restaurant, you're at a bar, looking for people acting up, misbehaving, consuming too much alcohol, being belligerent, somebody who, is obviously or their physical body language is such they make you feel as if something is wrong,
Right.
And if you engage in observing the human condition on a regular basis and simply just paying attention to your surroundings, head up, shoulders back, conscious of the perimeter of your body, engaged in situational awareness, before you know it, you start to see things that others don't. And it's always a good thing, actually,
Yeah.
Like I find money in the ground more than most people that I know, like stuff like that. I don't step in something I don't want to step in more than most people. I'm the one that says, don't step in that. Look at that. All the time. Like I'm the one that does that. People think
Right.
that I'm weird, but I'm not. Like I'm just paying attention. That's all it is,
Yeah.
In situational awareness in your physical world is no different than situation awareness in your virtual world. Every phone call that comes in, every text message, every email, what is the motivation behind this? What are they trying to get out of me? What are they trying to do? Like, what's really happening here? And as you consume this information virtually, email, phone call, text message, physically, person, dog, surroundings, whatever, you begin to rewire or wire your brain to be that much more in tune with your surroundings, with whatever situation you're in. And this is not paranoia. It's no different than, my dog is sleeping and I'm watching her sleep and there's a noise in the kitchen. It could be the ice machine, literally the ice machine dropping ice. And as she's sleeping, I watch her ear literally perk up, like the little radar that her ear is. And like, because I know even though she's sleeping, like, oh, she's like, oh, what was that noise? And her head does a little bit of this and she looks around and she's like, oh, that was just the ice maker. And she goes back down. Like she's always on alert.
Right.
That's her nature. You can develop a little bit of that as a human to a degree where, like, yeah, you start to kind of like take more of life in, and it's a good thing.
Right. And how do you maintain that warmth and approachability while still being intentional about safety in that aspect?
It really truly is being intentional. I love that you use that phrase, that word. Well, look at, I think that all empathetic humans who engage in bettering themselves to any degree, whether it's being more physically fit, eating healthy, being better in the relationships they're in, recognizing risk, being more situationally aware. I don't know that that person would develop being apprehensive as a result of being situationally aware. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think that they would develop their senses while still being themselves.
And I do think that a lot of it goes unnoticed to anybody who doesn't know what they're like. For example, when I go to a restaurant, I always sit facing the door so I can see who's coming in, who's going out. And, it's not something that most people think about or notice, but I know why I'm doing it. Nobody else does. So it doesn't really affect anything as far as how people can approach me. They half the time they don't even realize I'm doing it. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
If a church wants to improve starting Sunday, whenever, what's the one thing that they should do differently, that they should focus?
Well, I believe that, basic security awareness training, just recognizing risk, putting security in its proper perspective, what it is, what it isn't, right? I think all of that is necessary. Getting people on the same page. Security isn't about worry. It's not about fear. It's not about paranoia. It's no different than putting your seatbelt on. It's just taking control to a certain degree. Explaining there's no such thing as 100% security. Security is a journey. It's not necessarily a destination. It's not a place you have fully arrived to. Security is, 24/7, 365, and it never sleeps.
Right.
It's not something that we worry about. It's something that we engage the process in. It's no different than diet. You continually make choices of the food you're going to eat to maintain healthy cholesterol, healthy blood work, healthy weight. You continually work at getting to bed at a certain time to get enough sleep in, consuming fluids to hydrate your body. It's no different than engaging in mental health, not consuming unhealthy information on a regular basis and so forth. It's no different than dental hygiene. Regularly brushing your teeth and flossing. It's things that you do on a regular basis. It's habits that you develop, and explain it in that manner so that people look at security as a part of the process of living day to day, part of their routine, versus a task that they begrudgingly have to do because somebody's paranoid.
Right.
So once everybody, go ahead.
I was just going to say I like that. I like making it more of a habit. It makes it feel more like something everybody can do, not just people who work in the security field or the safety ministry people. It really makes it feel like something everybody can do easily.
You don't need to be a dentist to brush your teeth and floss your teeth. You don't need to be a nutritionist to figure out what's good foods and not good foods, right? You don't need to be a trainer at the gym to be able to work out. Like, you can do security on a personal level and not necessarily be like an expert. It's a process that you just walk through like anything else in life, right? And those that are on those first responders are generally the ones that need to all pretty much be on the same page first and foremost, and then they represent a level of leadership, and their behaviors and how they navigate the situation that they're in the church environment becomes an example for others.
Right.
In the way they talk and the words that they use, the examples they provide. As they are trained, they're training the congregation just in their way.
Right. And I think that would really help create that security, that safety atmosphere throughout the entire congregation, which ultimately I would think would make the job of the safety ministry a lot easier if everybody else was more aware of what's going on around them as well.
Yeah. And keep in mind that in this type of training, certainly pointing out what those risks are, and maybe even some of the statistics revolving around those risks to provide impact has its place. But doing what I do, security awareness training, for 40 years since I was a teen, professionally for 30 years since I was in my 20s, I can tell you from experience that it's very easy to, when you're talking about security awareness, to instill fear, to create an atmosphere of fear and worry. And when you create an atmosphere of fear and worry in the people who you're teaching security awareness training to, they will shut down. Because when you are engaging in practices of fear, it is truly, literally offensive. And people do not want to feel fear in that regard. And it is 100% counterproductive.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize, if ever, those who we are training, feel fear, because now we've stepped over that line. And I've done that twice in 30 years. And I remember each time that I did it. And I hope to never do it again. Because the two times that I did it, I could see how I physically hurt that person. I could see their body language. I could see it in their face. I could hear it in their voice when they asked me to stop.
Right.
That's very important. There's a fine line. We have a tremendous responsibility. And that responsibility begins with not creating unnecessary fear.
I love that. Robert, I really appreciate you taking the time to break this down. It's a perspective that I think a lot of churches haven't fully considered, especially what you were talking about not creating that fear atmosphere and making it more just about awareness, intentional awareness.
Yeah.
And for those listening, next week we're going to build upon this conversation by looking at how patterns actually play out in the real world and what it looks like in a church setting. I'll be joined by Rodney Carpentier to walk through that from both law enforcement and ministry perspective. See y'all there. If you want to learn more about Robert and his work, you can find him at protectnowllc.com. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sanctuary Peacemakers. If today's conversation added value, be sure to tune in next week as we continue equipping and encouraging those who serve and protect houses of worship. A special thanks to Haley Jones for granting permission to use her song Not Today in our introduction, and to Lesley Jones for allowing us to use the song Sound Mind as our outro music. As always, y'all stay safe and y'all stay blessed.